Yeah, first of all, it's really good to be here and to be talking to you again about this topic. And I'm really passionate about supporting people's, just general progress and being able to open up potentials. And in a sense, like on my path, I work as a therapist and a coach, and I've got a background of psychology, so I'm a psychologist as well. And it was combining a few methods in a sense that really resonated, both internal family systems that you mentioned, which has to do with our parts and the way there's different parts of us, and there's this inner family of like different aspects to us. But how there's also the returning to the core, which is called self, internal family systems. And in a sense, it's similar to, I don't know, in Buddhism, this would be called Buddha nature. There's the divine spark, So I was really drawn to it because it felt like I'm opening up something so precious within people that helps them, in a sense, both heal the parts within themselves and access more of this quality where there's compassion, there's playfulness, there's curiosity, there's connectedness, there's also like persistence, there's qualities of this self, this core that we all in a sense also bring as children to this earthly experience. And there was this aspect that's more related to my coaching, the way I do coaching, which is kind of like more rooted in metaphor, more right brain, which made sense to me as well, with being an ADHD wired person. So it's like, yeah, left brain approaches didn't work for me. And it was combining this, like coming back to the wisdom that we bring to this earthly experience, with the power that is like, and that's just that sense of, oh, this is what I really want, this resonates. And how do we support people? My question was like, how do we support people in truly getting there and living their lives in an aligned way, in a way that supports what they came here to do, as a soul, I found, the way I see it in my belief system. And yeah, I think what was really interesting to me were these approaches that are a bit more creative, that have the spiritual aspect, that combine the spiritual aspect and the psychological knowledge. So it's not just psychology, because it opens up this, like a bit of like magic mystery that is there, I think, where when we see ourselves as, conscious spiritual beings in an earthly experience. And there wasn't just the spirituality that could also sometimes kind of like neglect parts of us or make us avoid the parts or the pain that still needs to be healed. So that really made sense to me. It really made sense to me. It resonated with me so much that there was this aspect, to people that is so beautiful and transcendent. And I was really curious, and how do I really support people in the best way possible and also in the safest way possible. Just so
So
that they
for,
can embody more of that self qualities.
so for me, let's say that one part of me is kind of stable, has a job, is satisfied,
Mm-hmm.
but one part of me wants to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're saying that because I have some pain which needs to be healed,
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of getting or moving forward or forward, backward, whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
your method is first healing these parts and then getting to know where I really want and getting with the qualities you
Mm-hmm.
said with this curiosity, and
Yeah.
then moving forward step by step.
Yeah.
And how do you do this? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So in a sense, it's really individual for each of us, like I sometimes say that we are a constellation of, planets. We are galaxies in a sense, each one of us. Of course, there's similarities. But the way the system works, like internal family systems really brings this awareness of, people have these different parts, and you come and you might start working with one part of you, for example, the one that has a secure job and is really, and its need would be security. and you start working with that one, and it starts like, there's a ripple effect because it's connected to other parts as well. So you both need to be aware of that and careful, like how you go about it, and respect the wisdom of the system. But in a sense, like you said, if there is someone who has, for example, and often this is the case with goals, and the way I support people with specific goals. First, there's the clarity. Okay, this is, this is what I want, and the decision. Okay, if I feel like this would make me, I don't know, even better of a person, and it would enable me, for example, financial abundance, or going to this next level, changing what I do, would support not just me, but it would have a ripple effect, because I don't know, I could support some causes in the world or whatnot. I would go and check, okay, who's on board. It's kind of like having a conference table. So the idea is there's not just one person in here, but there's like, a collection of parts that we need to talk to. There's parts of us that are afraid, there are parts of us that are more courageous, and I would go and check, okay, who's on board with this. So for example, Rok has been saying he'd like, I don't know, he set this financial goal, for example, or changing the job, and who's on board and who isn't, right? So in a sense, it's like talking to a team and just making sure that you can best support the team and reach a decision. Because otherwise what happens is there's parts that are going to be on board, but there's parts that are going to block the system. Kind of like in a team where you don't have all the participants on board, and they might even say yes, but then they're gonna go and like, I don't know, like, I don't really like this idea, and they're gonna sabotage the idea or not work as hard because they're like, I don't know, like this, I don't know, the boss decided, but I don't even know if this is relevant, in a sense. Go ahead.
So this is like a different arrow of success. So let's say one point wants to go more stable way and wants to go more wild, and then this one stable one says no, this out of my reach, and then the wild says, don't worry, everything will be all right. But how to harmonize it, how to, or maybe a sub question to this: what if I don't want to move on? What if I just want to improve a bit in all areas of my life? Is this also good enough, or we have to be like transformative?
Well, you tell me, Rok. How do you want to go about your change? It really depends on the system. It really depends on the system. That's why I say I always go with the client. I would go, what's your answer to that question? Do you want to focus on one area, or do you want to improve in various areas?
I think in all areas, and then go incrementally, because one change in one area then stimulates me in another area, and then if it goes incrementally, that left side is kind of less scary, or like, okay, we're going to do step by step. Okay.
Okay, great. So for you it's incrementally. For someone else it might be a different, just because it's like, again, a different universe. You have your own planets, and talking to someone else, they have their own constellation of planets. There's no Jupiter there, for example, or perhaps if we use that metaphor. So there's like different constellations in different ways, and people will also just I don't know, they will have their own wisdom. And this bit was really made clear to me by studying a clean language and symbolic modeling, which has to do with developing a metaphor, because metaphors are really rich in a sense, and they have a lot of knowledge. And it seems like it's not just the mind, it's the subconsciousness, and perhaps even something higher self. So that would support for me. For example, there's momentum. Like momentum is so crucial for me. If I don't have momentum, if I don't have like the little goals and the excitement, I'm not gonna do anything, or I'm it'll be suffering for me. Someone else, it might be different. It's about identifying what is important, what is crucial for a specific person, and then the way I do it is like I would go and really get clear and develop a clear metaphor. For example, I don't know, working with conscious entrepreneurs, for example, for me is like having this like almost like a spaceship, let's say, where we are, gathering and we're inspiring each other, and there's this powerful energy and we're like flying around the earth. So this is like this is my personal metaphor for the way I see my interrelatedness and the way I want to grow in my career. And then I would go again to the parts, and I would go like, okay, so Usha's been saying, that she wants to create and keep creating or keep fostering this fun UFO of conscious entrepreneurs. And there's going to be parts that are like, yeah, amazing, on board. And there's going to be parts that are like, oh, that requires effort, or I don't know, parts that are like, how do we support the fun in business, so it's really about getting all the parts on board, and then also getting to parts of us that are often exiled, so kind of put to the side, that might really block the process. They might be really afraid, or could be, let's say, perfectionism that's blocking me, like I would take, and I do tend to take sometimes still a lot of time, because and it's great, there's a gift of, I go for mastery, I go for excellence, but sometimes it can also block me. So there's like, okay, I would go to that if I see this is hindering my process, this is hindering my progress, because things need to be perfect in a sense. Then I would see, okay, I would talk to the part that's and you're back with us, that's the perfectionist, and I would kind of like, as if I was talking to a person, I would go to this part with compassion, with understanding, not just saying like, you're causing problems and you're problematic, but because it doesn't work. They're, in a sense, they're like people, they need compassion, these parts of us. And so I would go to that part, and I would also find out, okay, when did this part learn this? That was really, this was like a safe strategy, that if it's perfect, then things need to be perfect. But because usually if we explore the fear, behind it, there's like, okay, if it's not perfect, what does that mean? It means this and this. Okay. And and it's usually with perfectionists, for example, it's like one of the inner critics in IFS. It was usually around the age of 6 or 7 that we got taught, okay, things really need to be, I don't know, you need to conform, like going to school, and it really has to do with that, or a specific set of beliefs you might have gotten there, like only if it's perfect, I'm good enough, for example, or if I'm not, then so it's exploring the fear and going back in the past, in a sense, to unburden that part, and then everything will flow more naturally and easily. But it really is like, it's kind of like identifying car parts, that are like, okay, something is, there's some little thing that's that makes our, for example, if we use the metaphor of the car, our functioning either just not optimal, or it's like breaking down the engine. And it's about figuring out, okay, if we want to go to, I don't know, from one place to another, let's identify the goal, let's get really clear about the goal. And then let's see what parts are functioning and are willing to support it, which parts are crucial in getting me there. And are there parts that are still, I wouldn't use the word broken, but in the car metaphor, let's say, we need to go to them and, take care of them.
Not optimized.
And we need to go and see, okay, who needs to be healed.
How this relates to, one is inner critic, but one is also being scared of being criticized. So let's say in a job, you have a boss and you do something new, then he criticizes you, and you kind of get resonated by how you got criticized by your parents. And how does these two roles merge, or they don't, or how you can move forward, or maybe how you can heal backward first and then move forward?
So perhaps we should talk about just the distinction between types of parts in internal family systems, because there you would have exiles, you would have the parts that are typically burdened, could be by trauma, could be by pain, and the system, in a sense, kind of like, does not want to feel the pain. It wants to protect you from feeling the pain, in a sense. So there would be exiles, but then we have protectors. They're kind of like, they serve they're both protecting you. from the pain, and they are, yeah, and they want to protect this part often as well. So in a sense, with the example of work and being afraid of being criticized, there could be a protector, and we have the manager parts that kind of like are active, just could be taking care of however you need to function in a daily life. And you've got firefighters. The firefighters are more like, I don't know, they could lead to addictive behaviors because they really try to suppress the pain. And when there's flames of this pain, reminders of this pain, for example, rising, how I felt, for example, when I was criticized as a child, and just how painful it was, and let's throw in some physical punishment, how I was not just criticized, but how I was, for example, how I was also punished as a child. So there's a real pain there. It might have not been resolved, because trauma by definition is something that wasn't resolved. No one was there to kind of console you. No one was there to make it better. And it's these parts that would, for example, just in the sense they would either avoid situations where criticism could even be involved, or they could be, I don't know, they could get aggressive, they could get angry, and fight back, but all in this function with this purpose of protecting you from the pain, or trying to protect the system of the past pain, or being reminded of the past pain. And it's often getting first to these parts that are protecting and seeing, okay, what is the fear, what happened, that makes criticism so dangerous. And as you heal this part, so it's usually when you get the permission to go to the exile part and heal it and burden it, there's usually also like qualities that come, like playfulness that was there at that specific age, but perhaps got a bit stuck, like frozen, because the part is frozen in time. And then you also you would go to the perfectionist or the inner critic, or this more adult-like part, perhaps, that feels, but even the adult ones, the ones we perceive as being more adult often, are often just parts that were kind of pushed into extreme roles. And when they feel they no longer need to perform that role, that it's now safe because Rock is now older and he can handle, or he can even like thrive on constructive feedback, even if it's like, if it means, okay, I've not done something perfect, but it means that next time I can do it better, or I can grow. If there's this new belief, and we get to introduce, okay, Rock is now different, and there's a different reality he lives in now, and he's open to like even a bit of criticism.
That's why you're saying it's an inner system part, because there's more
internal,
of them, like you said, internal, and one is blocked, and then if you release this one, this can affect the perfectionist and so on. So it's a kind of a dance with these parts, and the dance,
and even by just and often it's even just by going there compassionately, things begin to change. And it's I sometimes say it's kind of like as if ourselves, this core of us, that's really bright and open and compassionate and not burdened, unwounded version of us, as if it's sometimes clouded by these extreme roles of parts that parts have been pushed into. But as you come to these parts and understand them better, and how they actually wanted to protect you, and they had the best of intentions for you when doing that, that it's like you get more space for the sun to shine through, for these core self qualities to shine through, like playfulness, like calm, like compassion, like connectedness, like persistence, all of the qualities that are in this unwounded version of us. So that's how it functions in a sense with internal family systems, the way I see it. Even just bringing more understanding and compassion creates more space for the sun to shine through quite naturally.
Yeah, like the sun behind you.
Exactly, just like that. It's a great metaphor. It's a great metaphor.
What is interesting that the last time we recorded the Slovenian language video, and this time we're recording the English version.
Yeah.
And even when I was just listening to you, and that's why I want this posted to YouTube, I can just listening to you, sometimes I can resonate, with what you're saying, and things change even just by listening to this, I think this is a huge value for somebody just going through this, listening to the video, saying maybe maybe nobody decides this to go this bad, but even makes a small change in how do you say, in consciousness, that oh yeah, that's true, yeah, I do remember that, oh that was, oh that's because I don't want this to open up, because
Yeah.
when this opens up, the pain is the first thing that opens up, and then after that is the relief, and then the joy, and
Yeah.
then maybe a bit hesitating to open really up to what's at the core, what to say.
Yeah. The thing is, though, I feel like, and it might sometimes be the pain, but there's like this wisdom. I think the gift of internal family systems. I also studied hypnotherapy initially, but I found internal family systems to be way safer, because I found with hypnotherapy, you go to often to exiles, and the protectors might not be happy about it, and it's kind of like as if you were entering a family, and you need to have respect for these parts that were, kind of like the parents, and they've been living in this constellation for 30 years, for example. And who am I to just go and now, mess with the kid and then leave? And then leave, and they're still in the same constellation. They're still the same parts, so yeah, I feel like sometimes there's not necessarily the pain that comes first. It really depends on how the system functions, especially really traumatized systems. Sometimes like there's layers of protectors before, and there's a lot of it will be a longer journey before they let you go, before they can really trust, because they might have had, like, I don't know, years of abuse. So of course they're not just going to trust someone initially, just like that. And it makes sense. So I have a lot of respect. I'm really grateful to internal family systems, because they spread this awareness. And I think it's so important to be trauma informed and being aware of these different experiences. And yeah, just to go back to the pain, I feel like, the problem with just positive focus sometimes, or just focusing on the goal, that's why I like to combine both, is that these painful parts are like children. They're crying for attention, in a sense. They're gonna, in a sense, or if we translate it to vibration, the vibration of the pain is gonna want to be released, so you're gonna end up in situations that's gonna, that are gonna trigger that pain. So instead of like just, suppressing them and just, everything's fine, everything's okay, I feel it's so important to go to that pain and heal it, because it's kind of like the subconsciousness. And, in the sense, if we're not aware of these shadow aspects or elements to us, it's even easier for them to control it, to control, what our behavior, for us to end up in situations that are not really optimal for us. And the more we get to stand with these parts with compassion, the more likely you are to really, to be able to guide your life in a sense, also, and attuned to, well, what you came here to do, in a sense, as a soul. And I think a lot of this has to do with compassion. I'm also really passionate about nonviolent communication, and I love how it overlaps, in a sense, because there's empathy that we bring internally to these parts of us, instead of just saying, this is like, I just want to get rid of this part of me. We're instead learning to sit also with the pain and learning to embrace this part of us. I feel it's also so important where we connect to the needs of this part. For example, like you said, the two parts with there could be there with trying to change careers. One looking for security, having the need for security, and the other for safety, and the other one, for example, the need for growth, the need for joy, the need for, I don't know, being more connected, right? When you are aware of these needs, it's so similar to also, like, when you learn that, I feel it's more, it's both having more space for the sun to shine through, and then also being compassionate in our relationships. So I love that about nonviolent communication as well, because it brings this awareness of there's another beautiful human being there who might have, the strategy or behavior that's not the best, sometimes even damaging, but there's a beautiful need, and if behind, and if we get to this need behind, we can have more compassion for the person, instead of going into who's right, who's wrong. It's like how, Marshall Rosenberg used to say, how do we make each other's lives more beautiful? You know, can we play the game of how can we make each other's lives more beautiful instead of the game of who's right and wrong, and you know, who needs to be rewarded, who needs to be punished. So yeah, I love a bit of rebellion in that sense, because I feel like we're changing some, yeah, some societal norms and ways of functioning that are not really like our true nature. And I think our true nature really is compassionate. Yeah, so I think it really has a ripple effect going within with the compassion, going into relationships with more compassion, and then also, yeah, influencing social change with just that awareness of different parts and different things we can do, and that the world would like to see.
So the method is gentle, it is non-violent, and it goes step by step. And who are those who are the best for this method? Who will get the most of this method?
Well, I'm really passionate about change, as maybe I've just, yeah, as you heard me say just now. So I love to work with people who have this desire and vision, who could love to contribute to, you know, a better world, a more compassionate world, who have a vision. I love to work with conscious entrepreneurs. So as in terms of method, I think it's, yeah, it's pretty much a gift to anyone. But personally, I love to work with change makers, because yeah, that just feels like somewhere I can make the most change and has a ripple effect. Yeah, and I would like to see, you know, more compassion and more joy and more of all of the self qualities in the world. And I feel like it's so important, yeah, for people who have this desire, who have the drive, and who are maybe also in position to make a change. Yeah, so that really is, yeah. And in a sense, you were saying, yeah, just had another thought pop up earlier on when you were saying that sometimes it's even, you know, just listening to the discussion or having this on YouTube and affecting like the consciousness or level of conscious, or adding a little, you know, yeah, point of perspective. I love the idea also, like, so this divine spark in us, and this spark being in all of us and being a reflection of source or higher consciousness in a way. I often feel that it's because, you know, I've done I've done a lot of work and I get to kind of access more of this self. It's in a sense as if it's opening up by really being attuned to the person who's sitting in front of me. It feels like it's not just me who's opening up the consciousness. It feels like there's, you know, a higher level of consciousness that flows, that in a sense almost feels like it enters the communication, and
Yeah,
it will know how to it will know how to kind of, you know, through me, and maybe also through the frequency, guide you in a way that is, yeah, that is in attuned to, you know, like I said before, that's my interpretation, my view of it, my belief system maybe. But yeah, that is more attuned to what you came here to do.
Yeah, yeah, it does feel like you describe. I don't know how to describe exactly, but it does feel that something's kind of just kind of
flowing.
oh,
Yeah.
look, yeah, this one,
Yeah.
maybe this part and this part, maybe a frequency that sees more.
Yeah.
And when you see more, it's easier and easier, you know.
Yeah. And there's this, I don't know, I'm always in awe, and I'm so grateful for this work, because it feels like, yeah, it feels like through it we can come closer to this,
Yeah.
let's say Buddha nature or divine nature that is in all of us. And yeah, you know, that cannot, I think, not reflect in the world, in our own private world, in our relationships, and in the world at a larger scale.
Yeah, and that's the part where you integrate, when you integrate this in all parts of my life. Or everybody gets that tiny part of that spark, you know, which and that's what I really love at integrated spirituality, because it's not just the wow and this oh and wow and but really when you are, I don't know, at the meeting talking to the boss, you're a bit less scared, more calm, and then you calm for the boss, you know, and
Yeah.
and everything gets kind of a bit more just kind of,
Indeed, yeah, and courage is again one of the core qualities of the self. And at the same time, if there's parts that still get scared, sometimes maybe in that situation, you're gonna have more capacity to be there for them, to have compassion for them, as if you were the dad and there's the kid, and the kid can still get scared sometimes, but now dad is here, and dad is really connected, and dad is present. So that's the difference as well. It's not now I'm perfect and I won't get triggered. No, it's about this returning to this capacity of the compassionate self that is now there for that part as well. And it's kind of like the sun, it shines on everyone. The more you're shining, of course it's gonna cast a light on everything you touch.
Thank you so much, Ursha.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So the contact will be under the description. So if anybody wants to go this way, spark a bit of light in him or her, I really recommend Ursha. So,
I'd be really happy to chat to anyone who's interested, especially the people who are like, rebellious and courageous enough to go out there in the world and change some things that need to be changed still, right? So thank you, Ron, for
change the
this
world.
opportunity.
Thank you, Ursha.
Thanks again.